Hey everybody, this is Jared from Break On Through, and I'm so excited to share with you today Geraldine Convento. Geraldine is the founder of Meet Geraldine, and she's got some amazing expertise in creating brand strategy and brand presence, brand identity. She's also an SEO expert, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about her company, Meet Geraldine. Thanks for coming today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, it's so great to meet you. Meet Geraldine is a firm that's been open since 2008, and we focus on helping businesses and individuals build their brand and leverage their web presence for future growth.
Cool. So she's a perfect person to hear from today about identifying who your brand will become, either a personal brand or a company brand, and how to bring that out in the world with some exploration activities and questions. So let's dive right in.
Okay,
So we got some questions for you. So the concept of brand or branding has evolved. Tell us a little bit about how you feel like it's evolved.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, branding started a long time ago, back in the days of Marlboro ads or McDonald's and the Golden Arches. And it used to be back then, you know, when it came to radio, television, magazine advertisements, ads really needed to have a particular brand aesthetic and taglines in order to capture their audience.
Yeah.
So when you look at McDonald's or Marlboro or Coca-Cola, you know, back in the day when it came to radio advertisements, magazines, as well as television, they all had to have a particular aesthetic to capture their audience. Back then, we didn't have social media or any of what we have now.
Simpler times. We kind of missed that
Exactly.
times, don't we?
So now with the evolution of digital marketing and social media and all these different ways that you can market to the consumer, it's so important to have a memorable presence.
Memorable is the key ingredient there, right?
Yeah, for sure. And because back then, you know, you didn't have to worry about that. We were just at home watching, you know, consuming a lot of media, and now we have all these choices to make.
Yeah.
You know, oh wow, this is a great product or idea, but how do you remember that at the end of the day? You know, flipping through your social media, wow, this is such a great idea. I'll remember to look at this later. Will you really, if the brand doesn't really stick for you?
So would you say a key takeaway would be like creating something memorable?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, being a memorable brand.
Yeah, consistent brand too.
Consistent. Okay. So we're going to be doing some takeaways, and we'll highlight it in some of our follow-up materials, but memorable and consistent. I want you to think of those two keywords. One of the brands I always think of, I worked for Lyft. I was one of the first 100 employees for Lyft, the ride-sharing company. And everyone thought it was crazy that we used giant pig mustaches. And when I think back, I think how genius it was, because it was super memorable, it was on brand and consistent, it represented fun, and it made you want to tell other people. So I think that might be a third trait, is that you want to tell others.
Right,
What do you think about that?
It definitely has to be something that's memorable and shareable as well.
Yeah.
You know, is it going to be something that you're having a conversation with someone? You know, I just saw that on social media. Oh gosh, what was the name of that? The ad was kind of pink, and, you know, those are the certain things that people latch onto.
Yeah, you start to feel the brand a little bit, right?
Yeah, whether it's the copy or the colors or the textures that were used or the photo, there always is something along the lines of, you know, what is it that I can share with another person.
And how much do you think of it as really logical brand thinking versus emotional thinking when people feel a brand?
I think it's, I mean, we all, you know, kind of like Simon Sinek's Start With Why, right? We all...
If you're not familiar, you have to read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. It's going to be another prerequisites of the course.
Yes. So yeah, it's I think it's a lot of it is emotional. You know, I mean, there is logic to it. Like, oh, is this a better product versus another? Is this a better service versus another? Who do I trust more? But yeah, we absolutely connect with the emotional side of, wow, they really captured my attention, and I think this is the right fit for me. Yeah.
Nice. So why do you think entrepreneurs and startups have to create a brand?
The reason why they have to create a brand is to be relatable. You know, at the end of the day, whatever posts we're looking at, whether it be on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, we always are saying in the back of my mind, does this relate to me? You know, that's the whole thing about scrolling.
It's like whiffing, what's in it for me,
like,
right?
Scroll. oh, actually. Oh, cool. And then that's where you'll capture attention. So it's going back to that whole thing about being memorable and creating a brand that really sticks. So that way they can follow you. You know, it's one thing to see one post or one ad and say, oh, wow, that's really great. And then, you know, the following ads that you have are completely different
Yeah.
in feeling.
So
the
that's
way
that inconsistency that's an
exactly.
issue. Yeah. So being on brand, being memorable, consistent. What was the third one you just mentioned?
Being followed.
Being followed and being relatable, so people can identify with you and feel something when they see your messaging and they see your brand asset. So what do you think is another aspect of people creating their own personal and company brand?
Another aspect is consistency is key, because you got to create something that sticks. And you know, one thing I've learned as an entrepreneur is that even if you intend when you start your business to be on your own and create this really great brand, over time as you grow, you're bound to work with other people.
Yep,
whether
I can
it's
attest
other,
to that.
other vendors who are either going to help you
like
with,
you guys and us,
yes, with a website, with a video, or
we do the video.
Yes, website or a video or anything else. You know, you're bound to collaborate. And building a brand is also a big piece of what those guidelines are going to be. You know, as you collaborate with others, absolutely they're going to bring their other ideas, but you want to make sure to maintain the structure and the foundation of what your brand is. So as that expands with the creativity of other people or with the expression of other people, it will still have that same undertone or feeling. And once you've created that brand, you can work from those same guidelines and make a lot of decisions that are in alignment with that brand.
Cool. So to me, it's just not about me. It's about the other people that I might be working with and collaborating with.
Absolutely.
So think about that when you're building out your personal brand. It's not just about you and your company. It's going to be about the collaborators you work with, the partnerships, and other businesses that are going to want to work with you based on their branding, and does it align? So those are some of the key takeaways to think about. So how do you use the brand as a piece of foundational decision-making in the business?
The way that you would use it is, you know, making sure that the people that you're collaborating with are very clear about your story and your vision, as well as, and we'll probably touch more on this later, you know, what's the personality of the business? These are all things that are going to inform colors that you're going to use, the decor in your office, where your office is going to be, what the experience is going to be like when people come into contact with your brand.
Yeah, it's really the feeling of when you walk in, how are you seeing the assets of the company?
Yes.
How are you experiencing it? And so all of these are core decisions that you want to make before you launch out to the world and try to get clear on before you're saying, hey, everybody, this is me. So you're really razor clear on, well, what are those pre-decisions going to be before you launch yourself as a brand. So often people think of the brand as themselves, and what's really clear to identify is that the brand and the personal self, if you're doing a personal brand, does not have to be the same. One suggestion is to have separate profiles and not only be your personal profile. So what are some of your thoughts on personal branding versus company corporate branding?
Well, it's very clear that as a business owner and as your business evolves, you'll want to still have a piece of yourself as well as your business. You know, the business is something that will flourish and grow over time with the contribution of other people, whether it be your audience or the people that you're actually working with.
Yeah.
So building a brand is a way for you to create something that's there and can expand. You know, whereas yourself, like in your personal life, you know, there's certain things you may do in your personal life that doesn't really align with what your business public persona is.
Yep.
So if we think about celebrities or authors out there, such as...
Yeah, you were thinking of Tim Ferriss, mentioned earlier, and Oprah.
Yep, and Brene Brown, you know, all of these people, they're the face of their brand. However, behind the scenes, they still have their personal life and the freedom to do whatever it is they'd like to do. But there's a brand that kind of expands and people already are familiar with.
I always think of David Letterman because everybody thinks they know David Letterman from the talk show, and what I've heard is that he's quite, you know, quiet and different in real life, but he doesn't have that. Same thing with Jimmy Fallon. I hear the same thing. He's just not that same person off camera and off show as he brings this character to his brand and to his products.
Yeah, absolutely, and that gives you the freedom of your own expression beyond, you know, beyond everything that you've created for your business.
So some things you create will really align with your company brand, and some things will just not fit. You just want to push those aside and keep those separate. And the good way to think of it is like, do you want to share your Facebook profile, which is your personal profile, which might have pictures of kids and family and personal moments? Or do you just want to share your company profile and have a company page? So that's a good way to kind of think of the differences of like personal brand versus public image.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can you give an example of how you did this with Meet Geraldine? Because it's your name on the masthead of the company. Mm-hmm. So how did you figure out the separation between personal and company branding?
Oh, that's a really great question. So when I first started Meet Geraldine, it was just me. And, 4 years later, Lauren joined the team, and then we started to build this brand. So that was such an interesting experience for me. And one thing as an entrepreneur that I always see year after year is you're always having to have a different perspective or be a different person. And I remember when we started to build the brand itself, I had to really say to myself, there's a business and there's a personal me. There's Geraldine Convento and there's Meet Geraldine. And when it comes to business, nothing should be taken personal around this.
Okay.
So when we decided to create what is the style and aesthetic going to be of Meet Geraldine, and how are we going to describe ourselves? What is that aesthetic going to be? I felt so much relief. And it was because I knew that we had that set of guidelines that can help my team and whoever we're working with to really make decisions from that. And we can talk from more of an objective perspective. It wasn't, okay, Geraldine, so what do you think? What should it be?
It wasn't all about you, basically.
Yeah, I didn't
That's
have
nice.
all this pressure on me.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I knew there was never anything to be taken personal, because we could say, okay, so the brand says this. We're urban, we're connected, we're this, we're that. From a brand perspective, how shall we create this copy? How shall we build this website? You can take it kind of outside of yourself and not have to worry about having to make all these decisions, or is it going to be the way that I want? Well, actually, it's the way that Meet Geraldine wants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So I know that you guys at Meet Geraldine have a brand process that you work with. So tell me a little bit about how you think the entrepreneurs and emerging thought leaders on this course can really use that process.
Okay, great. So we're actually going to do this exercise live together.
Yep, I'm going to be the guinea pig.
Yes, and you're going to have the opportunity to do that too. And it's just a way for you to answer very simple questions and go through one by one and kind of build what your brand personality is going to be. What it's called is the brand personality profile.
Cool. And can you give an example of just one insight that you found out of the brand personality profile? Like one tidbit that like really helped you guys, establish this kind of as a process?
Yeah. The brand personality profile has a little bit of magic to it. And what that is being able to draw out the feeling or the mood or the essence of the brand without you saying, okay, I want this particular post on my social media or this particular website to be this, that, and this. It's kind of like a subconscious way of pulling out what that essence is going to be. So for example, for us, there are certain color schemes that we chose for our business and certain like just the structure of our website that we created, and it all fit in line with the adjectives that we've created in our brand personality profile.
Okay, so I want you guys to be open to this. It's about feelings, emotions, exploring what might feel right for you. If you're still at the beginnings of your brand, don't get stuck and concreted in these ideas. This is just an example of how to do this brand personality process, okay? So let's dive in and answer some questions.
Okay.
So Geraldine's going to walk me through part of this process. As I said, I'm going to be the guinea pig, and take it away.
Okay, great. So the frame of mind that you want to be with is, who would your business be if it was a person?
Okay.
So it's your brand as a person.
My brand as a person. Okay.
Yes. So go ahead, and you don't have to close your eyes during the whole.
I'll close my eyes. I like to close my eyes. Give myself a little visual break.
Okay, great. So imagine that your brand walked through the door, and what does that person look like? What is their mannerisms or persona? So think, first thing you want to think about is, what gender is this person?
Okay, so I have a project I'm doing called Move, which is motivational outdoor videos. And so we're kind of building out that brand as its own subset under the media company. So I'm going to kind of play with that today.
Okay.
It is a little hard to think outside my gender, I'm finding. So for this one, it's kind of a macho brand, so I'm going to go with a male.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And what's their style? What are they wearing? And just in general, if you...
Again, it's hard to project completely, like, out of my own reality, but I would say kind of business casual, but little flair of fun. Maybe kind of like a hat backwards or some cool shoes or something fun. So a little urban kind of chic.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how does this person greet you?
They might give me like a cool handshake, not just like your standard business handshake. They might give me like one of these and one of these. Definitely not like a high five or a hug yet. It's a little bit like standoffish at first, but a little cool.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So really casual.
Casual, cool, but even not too awkward.
Okay, awesome.
Because sometimes hugging someone you don't know is a little awkward.
Especially in a business setting.
Especially in a business setting. But for certain brands, I could see that working.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, great. So now I'm going to go through a few basic questions, and you'll want to think about maybe 3 or 4 examples for each.
Okay. So you guys doing the course, I want you to walk through this exercise also. If you need to pause the video, go ahead and think through these exercises as we do them with Geraldine.
So for the next portion of questions, we're going to think about just certain activities and different attributes of this person, their interests.
And this is just one person, right? This isn't a community.
Well, that's a good question.
Okay.
I suppose.
Well, for this example,
yeah.
For this example, just think of one person, one identity, not a community. Even though you might want to attract a community, just think of one person. Okay. Okay.
All right, great.
So what am I imagining them doing right now?
So think about, just kind of go into the back of their mind, outside of meeting them and what their style is like. Think about 3 or 4 examples. What do you think this person's favorite shows would be? Or do they watch television?
Okay, that's a good question. Let me think about that for a sec. So I would say that this person definitely does watch some TV and maybe kind of outdoor documentaries, I'm thinking. They want to learn more about people and the psychology of people and the real stories behind people. That's kind of what I'm feeling from them. I don't know exactly which show, maybe National Geographic documentaries or full feature documentaries. And mainly around like kind of outdoor kind of endurance things, like runners and climbers and people who are really pushing themselves physically.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And how about the type of music that they listen to?
Music's quite personal, so let me think about this for a sec. I would say they listen to some kind of popular, maybe house music, but not craziness. Maybe a little bit of edgy jazz. So yeah, this is really interesting. I've never asked these kind of thought processes before around this imaginary brand person.
Yeah, well, it's really meant to just give you kind of like an overview of like who a person is. So you're kind of constructing this.
Okay.
And so another question would be, what type of activities do they do? And think about, maybe during the week or on the weekends, certain things that they tend to do outside of the workplace.
Outside of the workplace. So I would think they would do, and now I'm gonna put them in California. So there's certain things we can do here in California that are not available everywhere in the world. So I would think they like to go up to the mountains and play in the snow, and that might be cross-country skiing or snowshoeing or skiing and snowboarding. I would think they like the beach. They like to hike out in the woods, and maybe they like kind of bars and local bars, and not like big ones, but just small little niche local bars.
And do they read or listen to podcasts? How do they consume information?
I'm imagining someone who's quite tech savvy, and so they do listen to podcasts. Maybe Bulletproof or Tim Ferriss or some of the leading kind of edgy podcasts exploring maybe human psychology and a little bit about business psychology and business growth maybe. I think they're reading kind of magazines more than books, and maybe shorter form articles. And if they are reading books, maybe they're like leadership books or, again, back to those documentaries about athletes and personal endurance people. So their film and their media are kind of aligning a little bit.
And then, so this one is a little bit different. You'll want to think of the brand as a whole, not just the person. So if you can use 5 different adjectives to describe this brand, what would those adjectives be?
The person or the brand?
The brand itself as a whole.
The brand as a whole is, let me think about this. It's adventurous, It's fun. It's based in psychology. It's outgoing, so it's not a timid brand. It's bold, and it's exploratory, if that could be a personality trait.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Now, how about, you said based in psychology. So we want to think of more of
Something
a
more
adjective. So is it
adjective.
cerebral? Is
Yeah.
it intellectual?
Cerebral is a good one. I like that.
Okay,
There's some
good.
deep psychology in their work, and they kind of bring that out. So cerebral.
Okay,
I like
cool. That was team effort.
Nice. Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, great.
So I've got my brand personality profile now. So I've ideally I would write all this down, right? And not making it right or wrong, right? Just kind of being
Right.
an open exploration.
Yeah,
So maybe speak to folks about that.
Yeah, it's an exploration, and it's really meant to get your brain going about, all of your different answers. Are they, if you think about these interests and your answers, are they in alignment with what this one person's interests would be? You might have, does your brand represent one that's pretty eccentric and you have a whole bunch of different interests that you pursue? Or is it just very in alignment? So as you saw with Jared's brand, it was very consistent, from the activities that they do to the types of music that they listen to the podcasts. Like, everything was pretty much in the same.
On brand, right?
Yes,
Is that what they use that term?
brand.
So how do you define that word for people when they think, is it on brand? It's a
buzz
buzzword right now.
Yeah, right now. So
good thing to know.
Yeah, on brand means, is everything consistent? Does it seem in alignment with what the brand has done in the past, or what
Might
you've
do
seen?
in the future.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and it should be pretty easy to pick those things out that are off-brand, right?
Yes.
So is there any examples you're thinking of right now that might be off-brand, where it really stuck out and went, whoa, that does not fit?
Yeah, and this is a pretty big brand, and I've had this conversation with people over and over again,
Okay.
Uber.
Uber.
So Uber used to have...
Uber ride sharing. I think we've
Yes.
all heard of this company at this point. Yeah.
Yes, Uber used to have this big U for their logo.
Yeah.
And then it changed to a circle and that little square and the line. And over, whether it be people who are in the field of marketing or not in the field of marketing, everybody says, what is this? What does this really
What does it
mean?
represent? Yeah.
Why don't they change their U back to, or their logo back to what it was? So think that this is related to this, or that this is the symbol that represents this particular company.
I always think of Instagram. We have an example over there. There was one more question you wanted to ask about the brand personality.
Yes, so there's one more question, and that is all about the linguistic style. How does your brand speak?
Got it.
So you could use adjectives or...
Okay, well, let me
describe
think about
them.
this for a sec. So I think based on what the earlier adjectives are, it would be kind of bold, so kind of not soft-spoken, but kind of and passionate. A bit intellectual, able to speak to like psychology and things like that, and about the brand. And then I guess kind of connective, like they could really relate to people when they speak, and there's that connection with people.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, and the importance of defining your linguistic style is so that if you're writing copy, whether it be for social media or for any of your marketing materials,
Or you're hiring someone.
Yeah, you're hiring someone else, they can get on the same page with you about what the voice and the mood should be of the copy. So as Jared defined the different adjectives for his brand's company, you can easily see that certain words won't be in alignment.
It just wouldn't fit.
It just wouldn't
It would
fit.
stand out. So that was the brand personality test. Thank you, and I loved being the guinea pig for it. And actually, I actually got a lot out of it
Cool.
just in doing this little exercise with you. So really take some time, write down your ideas, but don't get stuck that they might be right or wrong. This is just an exploration into your personal brand or your company brand at this point. So really just write freely, don't judge it, write them down. You can always change it later, and this will create a baseline of ideas. Do you have any other ideas for people when they go through this kind of process?
Yeah, I guess I'll just reiterate what you were saying. Some people say, oh yeah, I don't want to write this down until I have it perfect. You should ask
The perfect
Yes.
paralysis, yeah.
Just write it down and review it, and keep in mind that if you're in the process of building your brand, maybe it's something and you feel a particular way about it. Maybe it's something where you just need to get all of your thoughts onto paper, put it down for a little bit of time, and come back to it. Don't feel like you have to do it all in one sitting. No pressure.
Okay, cool. So that was a little bit more about the process of brand development, and next we're going to jump into more. So now that we've distinguished this brand personality profile, how do you feel like we can now use this in decisions and kind of choices we have to make as a company?
The different types of decisions can be everything from communication, so that's social media, marketing collateral, where you'll be speaking, what types of speaking engagements you'll be in,
okay.
As well as hiring. So the people on your team, you know, making sure that they're in full alignment with your brand, and do they actually fit with your brand persona?
I always think of Zappos, because Zappos is really famous for hiring weird.
Oh.
And they really make that known that we hire weird and we allow you to be eccentric.
Yeah.
And that to me speaks so much about brand culture and brand identity.
Mm-hmm.
So what about brand culture? How is this starting to fit? Because you're talking about hiring now.
Mm-hmm.
So for some people that might be in the future, or maybe they're not thinking about that at all.
Sure.
But how does this relate to brand culture?
You'll want to think about that everyone in your company as an extension of your brand.
Mm-hmm.
So are they people that can really hold true to what the brand adjectives say?
So what's another way you feel like now that they've done this work, they can really use this brand personality profile?
Another way is thinking about what events and causes that you'll actively participate in.
Oh, interesting. I hadn't even thought of like causes.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, on social media, there are times you'll see on a business's feed that they're supporting a particular cause. Donate to this cause, or one of our partners, or this is an event that we're participating in. So if you look at your brand personality
Mm-hmm.
profile and then look at the cause that you're being invited to join, or an event you're being invited to join, you might think, well, is this in alignment? Is this on brand with what I said that my brand is going to be? So for example, if you say that your brand is very classy and elegant, are you going to participate in an event that's very casual and informal? You know, and you might, but you want to look further about the reasons why that might correlate with your brand.
Got it. So we're talking about hiring, we're talking about events, causes. There's a lot of extraneous things that people probably are not thinking about when they're thinking about this original idea of like, who is this brand? So don't get overwhelmed. These are future ideas that you're going to be kind of taking on. But it's good to think about like, well, what does that future look like in 3-5 years? And where would we want to see ourselves? Like for us as a company at Brickhouse Media Co., we've been trying to lean towards TED and TEDx, technology, education, and design. If you're not familiar with TED.com. So it's really lovely because we use TED in our marketing. And actually at our last event, we had someone from the TED organization come by.
Cool.
And she totally picked up on it. And afterwards she said, would you maybe want to speak at TEDx in the future? So it really, to me, spoke about like brand identity and staying on brand and on message, that it was like, wow, we're being offered something because we really aligned with those organizations. So for me, that was a big like brand win.
Yes.
That we had aligned. And obviously there's a lot of components that went into that, but it was a real win around brand alignment and strategy.
Yep.
So Geraldine has done this process hundreds of times with people and companies and brands. So she's really an expert in this area. So what are some of the roadblocks you feel like that your clients have gone through in this process?
Yeah, well, you know, one of the roadblocks that's very apparent is for some people, they're a little bit more left brain or analytical rather than right brain. So for some, it might be kind of difficult to imagine who this person is and to create a completely new persona outside of who you are. So one thing is that you shouldn't be afraid to ask for help. So for example, you know, we'll be doing a Q&A with Jared, and feel free to ask for help during that time, or you know, ask professionals who are in branding and marketing.
And get feedback, right?
Yeah.
So how do you ask your clients to get feedback?
We usually ask them to get feedback from their clients, or if they're a new company that's starting from scratch, you know, their business colleagues. Ask them, you know, hey, I'm building this new brand, and these are the things I came up with. And this is a story of why I'm building this brand. Do you think that this is something that would make sense to you? And you know, just kind of see. And they might not have the specific answers for you, but I think getting out of your head is really important.
It's super important in this process. And I know you should have a core base of people, 5 to 10 to 15 people that you do trust, that are outside your maybe industry, and that you can ask for feedback from, that will give you honest feedback, not just say, oh, great job, nice work. They'll really look at things critically to give you feedback. I think that's really important as you go through this process, to have that core network of people that you can turn to, and they're really going to be not the yes friends, but really give you critical feedback around this branding process.
Yeah.
So thank you. So Geraldine will be available later in the course. If you'd like to reach out to her, it's meetgeraldine.com, and we'll put that into the course material. So thank you so much. I really feel like
thank you.
I evolved something today, and this was just a project that we've been working on as a side project in our business.
Well, thank you.
Cool. Thanks for joining today.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks all, and stay tuned for the next section, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.